Hello and welcome to Fellowship in Essential Oils. My goodness, it seems strange to do the announcing because we haven't got Adam today. He is in the States, and I have to say, I have been missing these conversations. So I am really excited to invite one of my friends, Frances, to come and talk about an oil that is not spoken about very often. She introduced me to the essential oil of Artemisia annua. Hello, Frances.
Hi, Liz, and hello, everybody who's listening. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing up this conversation.
So Frances is from, I'm never sure if I'm going to say this right. So Frances Bartlett from Essien's Cat. Have I said it right?
Essentious cat.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about you and about your company before we go on to the oil.
All right. I am from the south of England and I moved to Barcelona about 20 years ago. And I subsequently met my husband, who's a psychologist, and became an artisan distiller because we set up Essentious Cat about 10 years ago and started distilling 7 years ago, specializing in Mediterranean plants. So we hand pick wild plants from our beautiful area. And we also have 2 hectares on the site of our distillery where we cultivate medicinal aromatic plants, and Artemisia annua is one of them, hence the conversation today.
And I also should say that Frances is the most incredible musician, and she's a concert cellist, are you not? And she hears essential oils as music like I do, but she is on a whole different level to me. So it's very interesting to talk to somebody who's as fascinated about the oils from a spiritual level as a medicinal level. So tell us a little bit about this oil, Artemisia annua. What do you know about it?
Well, I'm going to start talking about the plant and how I became personally acquainted with her. So, Uriol, my husband, started studying medicinal plants with a lady local to our area who's really knowledgeable. And at the time that my uncle was having treatment for lung cancer, Uriol came home saying, we need to give him Artemisia annua. And I'm thinking, he's having chemotherapy. He's got lung cancer, like Artemisia, a plant. Like, what is this? I'm going back, no, sorry, 14 years. Anyway, so I was very surprised to hear a plant that could be used to accompany the treatment of lung cancer. Just the potency of that really surprised me. And then I had my second child. She had worms in her nappies. I unfortunately found worms. And this lady, Maria, who was teaching Uriol, said, oh, just put an Artemisia leaf in there in her nappy when she goes to bed. I thought, a leaf in a nappy? You're having me on. And well, I did it anyway. Never saw a worm again. And I'm thinking, hang on, lung cancer, worms, like, what is this plant about? Anyway, we continued investigating a lot. And there's a lot of talk about Artemisia in Catalonia and in Spain because an association called the Sweet Revolution speak a lot about this particular plant. And as we became distillers and we thought, well, we've got to distill this plant. We've got to find out what's going on here. And of course, many people may or may not know that Artemisia, there's the molecule, the artemisinin molecule, which is being extracted to treat malaria. And it is the plant to treat malaria. So from a personal experience, I was reeling really from the varied information, just what is going on. We started distilling it and make the hydrolate and the essential oil. But the actual plant itself is it's one of the cruxes of Chinese medicine. And it was written about, I've written it down here. The first mention was in the Handbook for Prescriptions and Emergencies, written by Hong Ji. We're going back about 365 AD. And it was talking about treating fever arising from exhaustion, tuberculosis, lice, wounds, scabies, and dysentery. And nowadays there's been more and more research into what Artemisia can do, and it kind of seems limitless. We'll go into it, but yeah, it is one of the most interesting plants. And funny name, Liz, Artemisia. That's my hand over to you.
Yeah, well, I was really blown away because I was like, wait, what? This is a wormwood. So should clarify that if you have qualified in aromatherapy, one of the first oils you're told to stay away from is wormwood, which is Artemisia absinthium. It's what they make absinthe a drink out of because it's high levels of thujone, so it's psychoactive. This is same family, different plant. No psychoactive properties because no thujone in it. And I said, well, what is it for, to Frances? And she said, oh, they use it for malaria. I was like, oh, okay, I'll look it up. And I was like, wait, what? Look at this. Agreed, everything. And actually, so interesting about the nappy. So I think I can throw a bit of light upon that. So one of the big rabbit holes I always go down is when we discover these tremendous molecules like artemisinin. I'm like, well, is it in the essential oil? Is it not? Because we don't want to fall down that trap. And the answer to that, it is, but it's in tiny, tiny, tiny amounts because it doesn't really like water, doesn't really like oil, so doesn't really sort of go into a maceration very well, doesn't really go into a distillation very well. So while it is there, it's only in small amounts. And there's quite a lot of research into how much better the extraction will be if it's a CO2. But it's best absorbed orally and rectally. So clearly having it in her nappy, that little molecule evaporated up a little bum and sorted out those worms and the parasites is a big thing. And actually that is one of the ways that artemisinin is useful for malaria because it affects the protozoa parasite of the malaria. And I think, if I remember right, it's something to do with ion chelations. So if you know your chemistry, ion can be Fe2 or Fe3 in the blood, and the artemisinin turns it to Fe4, which creates huge amounts of free radicals. And so the free radicals kill the actual creature, but it's a parasite, the creature itself. So it kills itself based on that. So the interesting thing about this particular oil I have found is its tremendous antimicrobial abilities, which we'll talk about in a minute, but also the way that it is antiviral and anti-inflammatory. And what's interesting about it is it does these things without being immunomodulatory. So if, for example, somebody has I don't know, lupus, for example, or some kind of what's the word I'm trying to say, autoimmune disease, where the immune system goes off the chart and you don't really want to mess with the immune system, but you are getting a cough or a cold, then this is great because it doesn't mix with the immune system, but it is antiviral. And this is kind of the next sort of generation of the magic of the oil, if you like. Artemisia, I should say that actually it's won a Nobel Prize. I don't know if you knew that, France. So in 2000, yeah. So the work that was done into artemisinin by a lady called, I don't want to say her name in case I get it wrong. I think it's Tu Yu, but she discovered the molecule in 1973, and in 2015 she was given a joint Nobel Prize for physiology based on what she knew of this molecule and how important it is for malaria. So that in itself has been one generation, but then the second generation is that they've also discovered, yes, chemoprotective, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but also COVID. It's very good
Yes.
antiviral against COVID. And so I think we kind of, so I'll just talk about the chemoprotective side. One of an interesting piece of data that I didn't know, that I've just really bored everybody with at 7 o'clock this morning in our house. Just waking up and I'm going, oh, chemo, preventative. So I realised that 67% of chemotherapy drugs are from medicinal plant derivatives. Did you know that?
I didn't, but it's no surprise.
No, and that's what I said. I am blown away by it. I said that's phenomenal. But also, I do think that it gives a pointer to why it's not great to keep eating too many of these essential oils, because they taste disgusting. And think about how ill chemotherapy makes you feel.
No. It's not a good mix.
Yeah, but particularly chemoprotective apparently against breast cancer. But the antiviral and the antimicrobial and the antifungal and the anti-inflammatory are where we focus our attention with the essential oil. And what's interesting is the chemistry changes so much between countries. Have you looked at that, Fran?
Yeah, I've really concentrated on our one, to be honest, because the chemistry is wild, and it's just such a great combination of really exciting molecules.
Right.
So you've got the Artemisia ketone in there, and our essential oil has 33%. So you've got these, and you've got other ketones as well. I've got our analysis here. The other ketones are, where are we? Camphor and Pinot Carvone. So you've got nearly 40% of ketones, but then you've got the sesquiterpenes at the end, which are the wood, normally come out, of course, in the wood and resinous extractions. So then you're going back to the sweet wormwood. So you have this depth and this height and this sense of kind of, it's not explosive, but it's a very, very expansive area that you're in, like a desert or a moonscape. Just your sense of perspective is really, really altered with it. But it has monoterpenes in it, like the alpha P9, and you've got the 1.8 cineol as well. So you've got all these great expectorants and antimicrobial, and really, the lungs are just expanding. They are in expansion. So yeah, in terms of the analysis of the chemicals, the way it's structured, and even when I first approached the plant, it's lacy. It has this lacy weaving of very delicate nuances, which seem subtle, but they're very powerful. But the character is very subtle, very elegant, very, well, the Spanish ladies with their lace, it's that regal almost, but exceedingly powerful. So that would be my sort of poetic analysis as well.
Yeah, I mean, I see all of these millennials saying, I am just obsessed by this and I just think, oh, how irritating. But I am quite obsessed with this oil since you've introduced it to me. And so one of the things that I've really been looking at is the diversity between, so it's all the same species, but all different places. So, for example, the Artemisia ketone, if it's grown in the USA, we're looking at 65%. If we're looking at and if we're looking at Vietnam, less than 1%. So this really properly changes hugely. And if you look at so there's, as you say, there's quite a variation in camphor levels. We're looking usually about 10%, I think. Is that right for you? About 10%?
We've got about 5.
Right, okay. Grow it in Iran, 45%. So it's so
Check it
fascinating.
out. Yeah.
Looking at it. And it's interesting, you are referring it to it as a Mediterranean plant. but it's definitely an oriental plant, isn't it? It's
Oh
very
yeah.
important in Chinese medicine. And what's interesting now, I've written down, it's not like me to write down, but I have written down. So, excuse me if you are Chinese or Korean, because my pronunciation is going to be very bad. But so I think it's Qinghao, which means green herb in Chinese medicine. So just the fact that it is the green herb in Chinese medicine says like any others, no, it's not worth talking about. I want the green herb. So that's how important it is. And actually, I think mine smells just delightful. I love it so much. And as you say, it's very kind of like out of your head floaty. But in Korea, now here we go, have a laugh. So I think it's called Gae de Dong Suk, which is means dog witch. So they say that when you rub the leaves, it smells like dog excretion. Now, what's interesting, of course, is I've just talked about how different the chemistry is. They're obviously smelling something entirely different, because mine is from France. Sorry, Fran, mine's from France. And
Sorry.
mine is just delightful, smells delightful. But they say, no, it's a horrible smelling oil. And that's why, because the chemistry is really, really different.
That's fascinating. That is fascinating that it can be that. I mean, you know, the rosemary can be diverse, but one thing is the diversity of the chemical components, you just, it varies a wee bit. The other thing is having probably a completely different aroma.
Right. But also that has kind of threw light on something that you had been saying to me, that when you see pictures of it, they don't look like the pictures you've got. Well, maybe that's why that the chemistry is so different. Clearly, as well, that means that the plant's addressing different challenges around it, doesn't it? So in Vietnam, the terrain is going to be so different to North America. Really fascinating stuff. But the COVID stuff is really interesting. So we often talk, one of my favourite facts is about how 1,8-cineol protects the body against the spread of SARS-CoV-2, whatever we call it in the scientific language, through the use of a spike protein. So so my favourite thing to do is to qualify between antiviral and virucidal, first of all. So virucidal protects you against catching something. So that's your sterile stuff on your hands, really. That's a virucidal. Antiviral means once it's in your body, it stops it spreading through. So how the COVID virus, and it's not obviously what it's called, but I'm going to use it because that's what we call it. It finds a protein on the side of the cell, uses that S protein to get into the cell, and once it's in the cell, then it uses the cell's DNA to replicate. So it's internal system to replicate through the system, and as we know, it goes through the system. But so that's the 1,8-cineol. Again, that's going to change in different diversities based on where it comes from. But we're usually looking about 10%, would you say? Is about 10% of yours, do you know?
Let's have a look. 7.8.
Right. So, and that seemed to be right across the board. But also, and I can't remember what molecules do it, but they were able to prove that not only use the S protein blocked it being able to get in that way, but also a protein called the N protein and another protein called the E protein all went, no thanks, we're not coming in. So 3 different mechanisms stopped the prolific nature across the body. As you say, very high in ketones. Ketones are disincarnators that break down mucus. So if you've got a cough or a cold, or if you're like me, you horrible phlegmy coughs that never go away, I'm kind of almost looking forward to getting a cough so that I can try this. But ketones are so good at breaking down phlegm. So yeah, again on that level as well. So such a fascinating oil with so many different properties. And then we've got the alpha-pinene, which is again about 15-20% usually. Very good for osteoarthritis. So it's been proven that alpha-pinene can help grow chondrocytes, which are the formations of collagen within the spinal column. Yeah, not cord, spinal column. So when osteoarthritis happens, they break down and they can't be repaired, but alpha-pinene can do that. So again, somebody's got aches and pains. But the other thing that it's very good for, which I think we implied but didn't say specifically, is fever. It really brings fever down, and that's one of the main things. And interestingly, you're talking about the herb in Eastern medicine, they use it for measles. I mean, that's not a small thing, is it? That's a huge thing. So really,
exactly.
really important oil. So I just want to sort of push back to a point I said. So it's one of its most important actions of the plant is malaria. And it is used for malaria, Artemisia neninine, but not the essential oil because it's in too small amounts. But it's used in combination therapies with malaria. So what it's proven to do is to be able to improve the efficacy of a malaria therapy. It's only got like a 3-hour half-life. So using it on its own, it's not going to do very much. And I think in the clinical trials, it was able to help 34% of people. But quinine, so that's like tonic water in it, quinine helps more, 74%, and for a longer period. But bringing them together and bringing them with malaria medications is really powerful. And so what they do is they make a synthetic copy of it now. So I wouldn't suggest using the essential oil for malaria, but the science is interesting. But certainly coughs, colds, diseases of the lungs. Interesting you said about lung cancer, because it helps protect against pulmonary fibrosis. So if somebody has COVID and they're getting that really bad coughing, or like when I had a PE, horrible scarring on the lungs, it guards against that as well. So it's a really useful oil.
Yeah. And I'd like to bring in the hydrolate here as well, because these uses, they are so profound and diverse, and there's protective and the treatment. And because the essential oil itself it's not that it's not safe, but if you're pregnant, you don't want to go near it, you don't want to ingest it, you shouldn't be using it topically for too many days consecutively. It is abortive and neurotoxic. The long and short of it is that. So this is where the hydrolate, and because we do long distillations and we keep all of our hydrolate, we found that this is an incredible medicine to be able to ingest the plant, because of course when you're ingesting it, the effects last for longer and it's just doing its work, during the day. So the recommendation is 1 tablespoonful in a glass of water. You can take up to 3 or 4 or 5 during a day, depending on how ill you are. But for preventative medicine, 1 tablespoon of hydrolate a week in a glass of water. And we're seeing no cases of illnesses. In fact, we went to a market yesterday, and one lady came up to me, "We were fine last year, the children were fine, there was nothing at all, they were in school and nursery and all of this, the typical, every child is getting ill in the winter. We ran out of your hydrolate and everyone got ill."
Oh.
And so there are these stories of, experiences, real life experiences of this hydrolate keeping people safe. And then when they are getting ill, using it, and again, for tension headaches, fever in young children, it's safe. You use a smaller doses. It's one teaspoon rather than a tablespoon. And also you're connected to the aroma of the plant as well, which is it's one of the reasons why I love hydrolate so much, is that whilst you drink the glass of water, you can take it medicinally like a tablet and just knock it back, or you can take a couple of minutes to really enjoy the aroma and enjoy the texture as it slips, as it is in your mouth, and really connect to the plant and the poetic medicine of the plant through the aroma when you're taking the hydrolate, as well as having it diffusing or whatever. But we found that this is a very safe and very effective way of using Artemisia annua and really getting the potency, because you can make an infusion. For those of us who have drunk Artemisia annua tea, it's a bit like, you need quite a lot of
Is it
honey.
very bitter?
Oh, it's awful.
Oh, is it?
It's
I wonder.
horrible. It's really medicinal. You're not going to get a kid. Most children would not drink that. Most adults, it is horrible. And if you've got, if you're going through a cancer treatment, or you have to take that, a medicinal plant for a longer period of time, you don't want, on top of, like you said, you don't want to be drinking horrible, bitter teas
No.
on top of everything else that you're having to deal with. So this hydrolate, it's cooling. It's just got the most beautiful, silky, it's like moon water. It's just beautiful. It's a beautiful experience rather than being a medicinal one.
Yeah, and cancer treatment, you need something nice in there. There's not many nice things, but
No.
I mean, what's interesting is it is bitter. That what I've read is one of you used as the Chinese medicine bitters, um, and that's kind of something that's really missing from our diet now, isn't it? And I mean, we haven't talked about how it's used in Chinese medicine for digestives, but because of this bitterness, um,
Mm.
and so it is a really important aspect of diet that's been lost, really. So that's a nice way to balance it a little bit. I hadn't thought of that. Very, very interesting.
That's a really interesting point. Yeah, we are we're addicted to sugar, aren't we? And our culture is sweet. Um, and we're not accustomed to these bitter tastes anymore. They've been eliminated from our palate. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such an important part of digestive balance to be able to have that. And it's interesting, actually. We talked about how it had, well, kind of maybe went over it too quickly, but it has fungal abilities. It is active against candida. And what does candida like? It loves sugar. So interesting that it's got that balance, hasn't it? Yeah,
Fascinating, Liz.
it
Yeah.
is. Plus, you could go round and round in circles once you start thinking
Well,
like that, couldn't you?
it's the lace. It's the lace. And this is where I start finding ourselves in an intricate lace pattern, because like you say, you're back again, and
Mm.
that's a beautiful connection there. Yeah.
So Adam and I usually ask sort of three questions. I don't know. I should have perhaps primed you, but I think you'll be able to answer them anyway.
I adore your videos with Adam, and I've enjoyed many of them. So
Good. So
I
right, so
know
you
I
pick up on it
think
then.
we know
So
where we're going next.
right. So if it was ruled by a planet, what planet?
She's about to be very, very full.
Yes, I think it's got to be, hasn't it, Artemis and the moon.
Yeah.
And I think you probably know where I'm going to go with this as well, because I'm just fascinated by all the Artemisia plants at the moment because of the Artemis moon missions. I'm interested to see what happens with all the knowledge about Artemisia plants. And yeah, and the fact that you said moon water and expansive and like walking on the moon, I absolutely agree with all of that. Am I right in thinking it does have panicles of little white flowers?
I've got a little branch here in
Look
my
at that.
bouquet from the garden.
So not quite white, are they? Sort of greeny pale, but yeah,
Well,
definitely.
yeah, it's more so Artemisia absinthe is the white moon. She's really out there, right?
Yeah, she's floaty, isn't she?
Yeah. This one it's green.
Yeah.
It's a lovely green color, and the seeds are yellowy golden. But it's just the aspect of her that's so delicate. And she's a little bit, it's not sticky, but it's the kind of just little tiny fingers that really hold on to everything that passes. So quite often there'll be little seeds that get blown in the wind or get caught in the flower heads. And when she's dry and dead and she actually turns brown, I mean, obviously most most plants turn brown, but you know, like St. John's wort turns that ochre red color.
Yeah, yeah,
That kind of ochre, really, you can sense like the iron, somehow in the plant. Like I don't know what chemistry that would be, but so she decays in a very beautiful way that preserves the shape. Um, so yeah, no, and she grows to about 2 meters tall. Can do, depends on the soil. Sometimes we have very clay soil here, so we do have some dwarf some
yeah.
dwarf Artemisia, and she likes quite a lot of water, full sun. So yeah, I mean, but quite a robust plant.
Mm.
But it's so curious why they called Artemisia, you know, and then this link to the goddess herself. I know this is going into
Well,
your
it is.
terrain.
I was not, no, because I
Our
had
terrain.
the same thought, really. I thought, well, this isn't even a plant. Well, I was thinking it wasn't even a plant that grows in the Mediterranean, but obviously it is. But I was thinking, well, it's native to China and stuff. Is this like colonialism? But obviously it's not. But interesting that, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not really that unusual, is it? If a plant that's got so many uses, and well, there's lots of things we know about Artemis, but a lot of things that people don't recognize is that she was the keeper of the herbal medicine. So her medicine cabinet is full of the stuff that does everything. So of course it's going to be in her purview. But yeah, really interesting. And as you say, under the moon, I'm sure of it.
And I
What
like
about?
you. Sorry,
But
you recommended me to read a book by oh goodness, I can send you afterwards. We can write it in the link about the phases of the moon.
oh yeah,
And
Stephen somebody.
yeah,
I can't remember the book. Yeah,
and I think because Artemis is with this crescent moon as well.
first quarter.
It sorry,
First quarter
the
Artemis is,
first
isn't it?
quarter, yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
that energy as well, which is this driving raw. So within the moon, it's this not furious, but I'm going to say furious energy of that with the silver arrow, and it's that
For sure,
aspect.
and this will amuse you because you won't know this, but you've had enough like exposure to my strange ways over the past few weeks that I was born on first quarter. So that is my moon phase. That there's like we go from right, have a thought to just get on with it. That is her medicine, isn't it? First quarter. So it's
Yeah,
interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and I like the analogy of her arrow as well, of how the pinpoint accuracy, this deadly accuracy. And with the medicine of the plethora, the complexity of illnesses, and I'm going to say nowadays, because I think our illnesses are probably more complex than they were like when dysentery and things were around. It was because of the bad water, right? I mean, it wasn't because
Hmm.
you had like an emotional
Hmm.
so my point is that probably illnesses are more complex nowadays because of our lifestyles, diet, emotional tapestry, etc. And it can be a freaking minefield trying
Hmm.
to deal with autoimmune diseases, cancers, fatigue, fungal infections. It's just, what is going on here? Is it the gut? Is it the mind? Is it my past life? Is it this? And people get lost, and it's so confusing, and it's like being in a forest and you just don't know the way out, and you can feel hopeless. It
Hmm.
can feel like a never-ending journey. And I think what I like about Artemisia is this drive of like this accuracy of going, I'm going to go there. Like, you don't know where it is, but I do. And so, you can obviously do lots of complementary therapies and receive therapies which the hospitals are giving people. But to have Artemisia as an ally through this arch of a journey, I think is powerful. And I think there's a lot of trust in that. It creates trust in your own journey, trust with the plant, this feeling of trust in health, that it is something that will come about somehow.
Yes, I agree. And there is a wildness to it. And I think it's clever what you said about how she points at arrow and it just goes there. I mean, if you think about how we talked about the COVID, right? When we go into that spike protein, we're going to that spike protein in malaria. It kills the protozoa without affecting the rest of the system. Yeah, that's very clever stuff, you know. That
It's
is really
really, it's
clever.
really amazing technology.
It is, and if you think about it, and I'm certainly not saying that essential oils are without side effects because they have many main effects, but there aren't that many adverse main effects here. Stomach cramping and griping, apparently, if you have loads and loads of the herb. But and as you say, we don't want to take it, we don't want to use it in pregnancy. But for the most part, everything's moving in the same way in this healing process. We're reducing temperature, we're reducing pain, we're uplifting the spirit, we're thinking more clearly. It's altogether a clever technology. Exactly right.
Yeah. And also, I wanted to ask you, actually, Liz, I'm going to throw you in
Uh-oh.
there. No, no, no.
Comes an Adam question.
Okay, so I'm going to my notes here. Oh, it's about this act. Oh, sorry, that's my dog. She's just having a good old
Mine's slamming
snore.
on the door. It's like I don't know if you can hear a door slamming. She's going, let me in.
So I wanted to go to this activity that is very oxidizing,
Mhm,
clearing out the oxides of the body.
mhm. Antioxidant.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Anti
Yeah, yeah.
um and I'm just wondering how this would affect and help women going through the menopause or premenopause and postmenopause and all of this. And it just came to me in a flash that it's a very, very potent antioxidant, and it creates on an energetic level, because I know we're going to go there now. The energetic level creates this timeless space. So it gives a sense of what's behind you. And it really clears out the emotional ghosts, I'm going to call them. And so you feel it's very calm. It's very calming when you inhale the oil. And I am wondering if this would be an oil that could be very interesting for more mature women to work with. And because of this antioxidant activity as well, that I know a lot of mature bodies have an accumulation of oxides in their bodies, as it were.
Well, I think that's too broad a question for me to answer.
All right.
Probably two places I didn't go before that I could, and that is that we know that it reduces the bad cholesterol in the system. We know that it also has an effect on the beta amyloid plaques of Alzheimer's. Actually, a third one is, if I remember rightly, it works on PPAR gamma, which is anti obesity. That's the main reason people are taking the supplement, the, like, what do you call it, the capsules, tablet thing.
Are there capsules of Artemisia now as
Oh,
well?
for sure,
Okay.
and tablets of them, yeah. And so that's how most people take it, because that's where your good bioavailability of artemisinin is. So I mean, it depends what aspect of menopause you're going after. Certainly, are we getting fat? Oh yes, we're getting fat, so that's useful. Is our cholesterol going up? Yeah, probably. So that's a good aspect. I think One thing that we would probably need to be careful of is to just keep a close eye on, if we were using it topically or internally, what's it doing to our bleeding if we're still bleeding. Because ketones can, because they sort of make things less thick, that can make you a lot bloodier. So if somebody's already got heavy flow, then I'd say just kind of watch that. That might be a thing. Not that that's written anywhere, but that would be my instincts about it. But this idea of just, I don't feel like I've got the brain fog so much when I use it. And as you know, my memory is just horrific. And I can regurgitate huge amounts of information when I'm using it. And I actually can go, I'm going to that room and I know what I'm going there for. Now, that's definitely a menopause thing. But whether you could say that that is why you would use it for menopause, but I definitely think it's a useful thing to try, for sure.
My question was, I'm going to be speaking about using essential oils in the menopause to balance the nervous system, really. And it just came to me this morning as I was sitting with Artemisia before our conversation, this extremely calming landscape. And of course, because it is neurotoxic and abortive, you know, I would imagine you don't really want to be around it too much if you've got young kids or you're pregnant. You know, it's not going to be that kind of oil. I'm wondering if it's an oil for perhaps a more, you know, a woman who's like us, just we've gone through that now. And there's still lots of it just seems so cleansing.
Yeah, it does, yeah. And I have to say, I wouldn't feel nervous offering it to somebody younger to use aromatically. Topically, maybe, as you say, I might just go, I think there are other oils, unless, and to clarify, I mean, as a preventative in terms of like dealing with anxiety and stuff like that, there are other oils. But if somebody's younger and they've got COVID, then I'm in there with a shot, you know. But like preventative, using it from an aromatic point for the mood, I think you're probably right that it kind of does have the crone energy about it. Now you say it, it kind of does feel a bit like, well, I don't really have anything else to do, so it's just almost like being retired. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I like that idea a lot. Where do you see it going in terms of the chakras?
To be honest, I'm not totally sure because it kind of goes everywhere.
Agreed.
So you know, going back to this lace metaphor, it makes me become aware that my body, my energetic system is a web. Perhaps there is a sinking, it does go into the heart area where there is a sinking feeling to it because of these sesquiterpenes at the end. You know, there is a weight to it. There is definitely a darker presence, a shadowy more presence. And it's instead of perhaps the lineal chakra energy, it's more of an expansive, energetic breath, let's say. That would be my short answer. Where is the one?
Like the long answer. I loved it though. And I do agree that feeling of expansion is for sure there. And and with that in mind, then perhaps we should also say that it has a Jupiterian presence about it. You know, you do have that feeling of expansion, which is Jupiter, but feeling of dreaminess that you want to go for the higher realms, to learn more, to know more, to, you know, and the fact that, you know, you almost can't learn about it without going deep into the science, deep into, I want to understand that, what that means. That's Jupiterian. So I think that we have to go down that route. And then if you kind of move it backwards into the medicine. Jupiter is cholesterol, liver, digestion, all of those things, whereas the moon is kind of the emotions, but it doesn't touch on the rest of the stuff. So I think, yeah, interesting that it probably falls in both, for sure.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Well, it's a beautiful balance, isn't it? The intellect, the science, the knowledge, and then this the mystery.
Mm,
Like we were talking earlier, sometimes it's illness is such a mystery, health is such a mystery. It seems miraculous. And so to be open to the trust that, it's going to take a miracle for me to get cured here, that is a beautiful medicine in itself, to take that step and be in the presence of a mysterious, miraculous
mm,
plant.
mm, for sure. So Adam likes to ask the question, is it an oil that you want or you need? What's your thoughts on that?
I would say the hydrolate is a must have for every household for the winter seasons. If you're traveling, especially to countries where there are malaria, but even if you're traveling and you don't want to get ill, or if you're traveling, yeah, it's a great, great, great protector, the hydrolate. The essential oil, I haven't used it as a need because I've got the hydrolate. But if I didn't have the hydrolate, then I would use the oil I expect.
And you produce both, that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, we do.
So am I right in thinking there is due to be a distillation happening in the next few days?
In the next few days, I'm going to harvest this afternoon. I think we're going to distill tomorrow morning. So yeah,
How exciting.
yeah.
So I want to, before we go, just kind of hijack a little bit and give you a plug for your beautiful CD. So tell us a little bit about your music for people that don't know, because I'm sure people have absolutely fallen in love with the way that you talk about oils. So give them a little bit more of the juice, so to speak.
Thank you, Liz. Oh, okay. So because I spend a lot of time with plants and I play the cello and I sing, um, and I write poetry, and the poetry really is just knee-jerk reactions to the plants. I can't even remember writing most of the poems. They just appear. And last year I put the poems to music for cello and voice. And the CD's called Dream Me Green, as a call really for us to dream together, or to be dreamt by the plants. So who is dreaming who? I love Sharon Blackie's work on the Mundus Imaginalis, this idea of the landscape dreams the myths, or do we dream the landscape? This interaction between plant, land, and soil, and women, men. And there are two CDs. The other CD is called Dream Me Again, and it's again more poetry with set to music for the piano with a wonderful Catalan pianist called Carlos Marigo. And in between the songs are improvisations for cello and piano. And it's music that covers the spectrum of emotions. And it's also mysterious, a little bit meditative sometimes, a bit dramatic others. So yeah, it's on
And give us
Spotify.
It's yes, it is, and it's lovely. Give us a couple of shout outs of some of the oils that you cover in it.
Oh, Cypress. Cypress there, the Cypress song. Rose, we've got a lovely rose hydrolate. And funnily enough, a lot of the oils, I've got other songs about calendula and iris, which we don't make oils from. But there's other things. There's one song called Green. Sorry, I love the colours. It's when but a lot of the work previous to that was about the three wise trees, which we distill: cade, wood, juniper berry, pine, white pine, red pine, and cypress. So yeah, we specialize in the Mediterranean plants from around our region. And another really interesting one that Liz likes is mastic.
I do really like mastic. And I was thinking I'm going to see if I can find somebody else to speak about it, and if I can't, I'll come back to you because that is the other oil that I've become obsessed with. So I want to just give one more shout out on the CD a song that you haven't mentioned. Unbelievable Space is just such a beautiful piece of music, and so if somebody is interested in engaging with the plants in a different way through music, I would heartily recommend it, definitely.
Thank you, Liz. Thank you.
Anything else that you would like to say before we go?
Thank you very much for inviting me to talk about Artemisia with you. And I love the podcast with you and Adam. It's just so informative, like, and thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Well, it's been entirely my pleasure. Thank you so much for being with us today. And so thank you all of you for being here with us today as well. And I look forward to speaking to you next week with another oil from the Fellowship in Essential Oils. Bye-bye.